Back in 2017, I had undergone probably the roughest breakup, uncoupling that I've probably ever experienced. Like, literally, the stress of that connection and then disconnection and the way it went down, it quite literally put me in the hospital a few times. I was going on 27 at the time, and I distinctly remember one of my visits to the hospital, the nurse telling me, honey, your blood pressure is at stroke levels right now, and you're way too young to be experiencing this. You need to really address your stress and reduce it as much as possible. And when she told me that, that really started hitting home for me a lot. Now, I didn't immediately recover. I didn't have some miraculous recovery because of that, but it definitely put a lot into perspective for me that I was allowing the connection with another person to quite literally consume my life and almost take my life. And that year, around this time, actually, it was on the spring equinox of that time. Um, I did a self marriage ceremony. I took vows to myself and vowed to honor myself the way I wanted someone to honor me. I had to think really hard about it. I had to really sit and reflect on patterns that I had relived in that relationship and a previous relationship of mine before that person, and just dynamics in my own family and all that stuff. And I had to sit with these things while considering the vows I was going to make to myself. Taking a vow is a powerful and intentional commitment and promise that you make to yourself that can really strengthen your relationship to yourself. It can deepen your spiritual path and dedication to that path. Um, it can be life altering. Um, so I say all of this because we're in a number one year, right? And when I think about it, 2017 was also a number one year. And I came back around to this ceremony for myself after having a discussion with a friend of mine who also, back in the early 2000s, did a self marriage vow taking ceremony for herself. And I remember telling her, maybe it's time you renew your vows then. And she said, absolutely. But then it got me thinking about my own, and where I have kept to those vows and where I have slipped. And so this has really prompted me, Spirit has really prompted me to revisit this ceremony for myself. You can do this whether you are single or married or dating. A vow doesn't necessarily have to be like a marriage ceremony. Marriage simply means a binding, a pact, a joining. So you can look at it as a marriage ceremony or just a vow ceremony. It's the vow that is very, very significant because words are powerful. And, I'm looking up right now more notes on vows, and it's very interesting, and I'd like to share it with you. Um, Key aspects of taking a vow are purpose and intentionality. Vows help structure your life, guiding decisions, and help you to prioritize your energy away from impulse or inertia. towards deeper aspirations. So, taking these vows can really help clear your sight and give you that structure and guideline to keep you focused on what really matters rather than get scattered and constantly breaking your own heart and not keeping promises to yourself. This can really challenge you to see the sacredness of those promises, those vows, those spells that you set in place. Whatever we want to manifest, we have to set a certain pact with ourselves and our lives to also take the necessary actions, build the necessary habits towards making that a reality. We can't just say something and then do the opposite or do nothing at all. That will constantly create trust issues with ourselves. And perhaps that can be part of your vow taking, is promising to, vowing to be a more trustworthy friend to yourself, lover to yourself, um, leader to yourself, and so on. Vowing to make decisions that build trust within yourself rather than divide you within. Another key aspect of taking a vow is commitment and stability. Vows are binding, lifelong commitments that can bring a sense of freedom, strength, and focus. So, again, this deepens, finding the purpose and the intention behind your vow, and then vowing to commit. Commitment brings the stability needed to keep these vows in place and evergreen. Significance and solemnity. Vows are more formal than promises, often witnessed by a community or made in a spiritual context. So you don't have to have anybody present for that if you don't want to. You can have your sisters, your brothers, not just biological, I mean your, soul sisters, soul brothers present. You can have a minister present or a spiritual guide present, but you can also call in your ancestors for this type of a ceremony, for this type of ritual. And it could be something as simple as sitting in a quiet place with a candle lit, your favorite incense, wearing your favorite outfit or your comfiest outfit, um, and writing these things down and then saying aloud in the presence of your higher self and your ancestors what you vow to take on, what you vow to commit to, and why. Another key aspect of taking a vow is seriousness. Biblical and traditional perspectives emphasize that a vow made must be honored, warning that it is better not to vow than to break a vow. So this really does something to your psyche, your heart, and your soul when you make a vow to yourself. That's why there is a renewal of vows, because it's like you go through a cleansing and a renewal, a refreshing of, and a reconnecting with, and reflecting on what has worked, what has not, where you've slipped, where you've really shown up for yourself. It's important to revisit those vows. And if you need to make new ones, make new ones. If you need to, or want to, or desire to still commit to some that you've had a problem with, then speak about those problems with your ancestors, with your guides, with your higher self. You can speak to your higher self. Your higher self is not some far away, woo woo separate identity. It is a part of you. It's the part of you that knows better. And you can speak to it, put it in power, put it in place, connect with that part of you that knows better and vow to listen and do better. So I hope this inspires you to possibly do this for yourself. Again, it doesn't need to be some elaborate ceremony. It can be. I mean, go all out, seriously, if that's what you want to do. Make it a big deal, because it is a big deal. But it doesn't have to be aesthetic. Remember, Alignment over aesthetic is very important in our health and well being, in our spiritual practices, in our lifestyle and our life practices. Alignment is always more important than aesthetic. It should never, nothing we do should be focused on how it looks, but rather how it feels, how it benefits us, how it supports and strengthens us. So when you make and take these vows, make sure you're keeping that in mind. Don't drive yourself crazy thinking I have to have a certain amount of candles, or I have to have a certain outfit, or I have to have this. And no, you don't. You really don't. But it does need to be personal, because this is personal. This is about really binding to yourself again, reconnecting with yourself, and reattaching pieces of yourself that have felt lost and disconnected, so that you can work to your fullest capacity and be more present and feel more whole. So I really hope that this is something that you will do for yourself, and that this has inspired you to really think about the promises that you've made in the past and not kept, and why, and inspires you to grow forward more committed to showing up for yourself in a very deep and profoundly loving way. I love you so very much. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Blessed be. Be well.